Access to clean drinking water is a basic human right. But do you know that 50% of rural India doesn't have any source of protected drinking water? In fact, in a list of 122 countries rated on quality of potable water, India ranks a lowly 120. These are scary statistics that never make it to the headlines, but affect the health of millions of people across the country. In our special series, Jal Daan, Building a Healthier India, we are looking at where the problem lies and how corporates can perhaps help arrive at a sustainable solution. Joining me today, four people who have worked very closely on the issue. A.V. Suresh is the President and CEO, International Operations, Forbes Pro. He's joining us today from Mumbai. Anushri Parekh is Senior Manager, Research and Knowledge at Samhita Social Ventures. Atul Trivedi is the Executive Director, ESMD and CSR, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. And Aloka Majumdar also with us today, Head Corporate Sustainability, HSBC India. Anushri, I'm starting with you. Just set this up for us. India has the largest number of people without access to clean drinking water, potable water. How did we get to a state like this?
So Shreya, I think there are a few reports, and they estimate that around 75 million people, that's around 5% of our population, doesn't have access to clean drinking water, safe water. And we account for 16% of world's total population, yet we have only 4% of its water sources. So obviously our population has put a lot of stress on our existing water resources. Also, we're a country that's very heavily dependent on groundwater, and we're using up the groundwater faster than we can actually replenish it.
So Anushri, is this a case of water everywhere and not a drop to drink? Because many people could argue 71% of the Earth's surface is covered with water. Water of all things shouldn't be a problem, but it is.
So it's not just the quantity, right? It's accessibility, it's affordability, and most importantly, it's the quality of water that we get.
A.V. Suresh, come in here. It's not like the government is not aware of how grave the crisis is. I have some figures here. Till the 10th plan, the government has spent more than 1,000 billion rupees on drinking water schemes. I want to know how donating at least 5 litres of water, which is the core philosophy of the Jal Daan movement, how do you think that will help, given that the issue is so grave?
Well, Jal Daan, as you rightly said, is a movement. It's not a solution to availability of water. I think it's more a movement for people with a heart who believe in serving humanity. So we are talking about people who have access to water, but people who have access to water but not safe drinking water at times. So Jal Daan as a movement is for people in towns, in urban areas, or maybe a little bit into urban slums, where people have a source of water and purification process, and they share the pure water with the other people around. And the reason we are saying is something which can be done is because the people like your servant or your driver or your security are people whom you deal with on a daily basis. And it's feasible to get that going. And this has nothing to do with the 1,000 billion or 1,000 crores spent by the government, because that is spent more towards creating infrastructure for availability of water.
Atul, it's a bulk power transmission company. Your work is spread across India. You, like the rest of the corporates in the country, have to spend 2% of your profits on CSR. Is potable water glamorous enough to be on the list that you look at?
Government of India has come up with the CSR Act recently 2 years back, but Power Grid is doing community development work from the very beginning of establishment of Power Grid. The list of Government of India covers many items which can be undertaken under CSR. But in Power Grid, we are focusing on 4 or 5 areas, mainly health, education, rural infrastructure, environment. And this drinking water is very much in focus area, which can be covered under health, under rural infrastructure also, and sustainability also. Our focus area is mainly our project areas, the villages which comes near to our substations and transmission lines. And we are taking up installation of hand pumps, installation of solar hand pumps, submergible pumps, RO drinking systems, ATMs, etc.
So, sir, program implementation is one thing. How do you address the problem of sustainability? Because that's, I think, one core area that often gets neglected.
Yeah, basically under CSR we have to ensure that whatever activity we are taking up, that should be sustainable. So when we are putting up hand pumps or some submergible pumps, we talk to panchayats, because we are implementing our most of the project in villages. So we, in association with panchayats, we take up the work, and wherever the panchayats are agreed to do the O&M works after the installation, there only we are taking up such projects.
All right, let's get Aloka on the other big issue. India's growing population, Aloka, and the onslaught of industrialization and urbanization is putting a severe strain on water resources. The problem is that most of our water resources in any case are contaminated by chemicals and sewage, isn't it?
Specific to India, we have 85% of our drinking water is actually from ground level water. Now, groundwater contamination happens because of two reasons. One is your natural reason, which is, your naturally occurring issues of the earth, which is your arsenic, your fluoride, your nitrate. But there's another thing which is more the non-natural part, or as we call it, anthropogenic. It happens from runoff from agricultural fields, your industrial and household waste. It's a pretty complex area. There is not one solution to this issue of water. What will be important is to comprehensively understand the nature of contamination, source and nature of contamination, and that's how I think we can address the challenge that we are facing with safe water.
Anushri, just come in on what Aloka is saying. I believe that at least 50% of villages in India don't have access to clean drinking water. So the problem is huge, the geography is huge. How do you prioritize? How do you select areas where you want to work? And what are the big challenges when it comes to implementation?
So I think in terms of selecting communities, villages, companies follow a range of strategies. So if you are a manufacturing company, you have plants and factories or a very large regional footprint, you can literally work in your backyard. Most of these factories are located in rural or tribal or isolated areas. The important part to remember is to actually involve the communities. If you want sustainability, then it has to be a program that is designed by the community for itself rather than on their behalf by some CSR team. So typically we've seen companies undertake some sort of needs assessment, checking the quality of groundwater levels, etc. The dynamics of that community, whether it is open, accepting of your idea, and whether it's willing to participate and ultimately own the project that you're trying to do there. In terms of implementation challenges, I think we've again sort of covered this, but lack of attention on maintenance. So, when we do our field work and research studies, in schools typically we've found that of 10 water filters, probably 6 to 7 are defunct on any given day, right? And the schools do not have the wherewithal from the sort of the funding that they get. They generally do not have the wherewithals to actually pay for an annual maintenance contract. Similarly, in the communities, we've sometimes found because there is not a sustainable business model around a plant, it fails. So there's no money, there's no demand for that water, which is again the other challenge in implementation, that people, communities are not able to sort of realize that the water that looks clean may not necessarily be safe to drink.
Suresh, would you want to come in here?
Yeah. See, basically, I think the awareness starts right from us on what is needed. End of the day, when we try and do a service to the community which is not needed at their end, then naturally there is no interest or sustainability on that. Very often, corporates, companies, PSUs want to install hundreds water plants without knowing why, what, where they want to install. There needs to be a need for water plants.
I think Aloka also wants to come in on that. Go ahead, Aloka.
It is a community engagement is not an easy task. It's time consuming, so therefore it is very unlikely that you're going to have a one-year project and say that it's been very highly impactful. What we've seen that it requires investment for a little longer period. Therefore, none of our projects are actually one-year project or ad hoc projects. We typically try and work with longer-term projects with our partners. Because engaging with the community over a period of time I think helps in terms of making them understand the various aspects. Do understand that when we are talking about community, it is somebody's household. So if somebody is coming to my house and asking me to do certain things, it's not going to be liked by me. It's not going to be easily acceptable. So it's a longer term process, and I think our partners do a phenomenal work in this area.
Okay, on that note, let's just quickly slip into a quick break. On the other side, we'll look at how corporates can help make drinking water accessible to the rural population in this country. Welcome back to Jal Daan, Building a Healthier India. Okay, so community participation is one key element. What about technology? Where does technology come in?
Basically technology in the rural areas we have to find out the innovative solutions for rural areas, generally because the electricity is also not available. Like even the schools do not have electricity, so how they can run the normal RO plants. So we have to find out some solutions where the electricity is not required. We may use solar energy or some other technology which do not require the electricity.
Suresh, come in here. I do know that your company has set up water purification plants in schools, in urban slums as well. What do you do when there's no electricity? You know, these are challenges which I think need to be addressed by people like you on an everyday basis.
Basically, as you rightly said in the beginning, if there is no water, then where is the question of a water plant? If there's no access to water within 2 kilometers radius from where you stay, and if you're sending children of 8 years and 10 years to pick up water, then where is the question of a water filtration plant in that place? I think one needs to understand in totality what is the need of the village, what is the need of the rural or urban slum. What we believe is that first understand the need of the place, second understand and evaluate the source of water, third test the water for its conditions, and then have technology. You have technologies which are electric bound, like your ultraviolet or your reverse osmosis. Like for example, in Eureka Forbes, we never prescribe reverse osmosis when it's surface water, because an ultraviolet is good enough, and without wasting water. Reverse osmosis wastes nearly 60 to 70% of the water, whereas in ultraviolet, ultrafiltration don't have wastage of water, and that's not required for a surface water. Where if it's a borewell water with contaminants, yes, typically we go for a reverse osmosis. So one needs to understand water more than selling plants. When you say we're doing CSR, it should benefit the end consumer. It is not a question of spending 100 crores, 1,000 crores or 2,000 crores. And thereafter, if it's not sustained, then yes, we can hold the villagers accountable.
Anushri, you want to come?
Yeah, so Shreya, I think one last point on technology is that we've seen a lot of cost-effective, affordable technology, but the one place where it kind of fails is that it's not institutionalized, right? So once you introduce a new technology in the market, you really need to offer the hand-holding support that's required for it to become mainstream. A lot of the products, you know, we are the startup capital of the world, so a lot of the products get piloted, and you know, it may be great, it may work for cluster, but the minute you try to scale it up, you get into issues where you require an established systems and processes where that technology can then actually be embedded and made mainstream. So that's another problem that we've had with some of the more innovative products.
You know, here's a question I have. Access to clean drinking water is a basic human right, right? Here's the question. This is the government's job, many people could argue. Does corporates pitching in help?
Absolutely. So I think, see, the CSR has done us a great, it's brought us a great opportunity. And it's not just the financial resources in terms of the CSR monies that are going to be released, but it's really the non-financial resources as well. So think about it, you know, we normally bucket.
What do you mean by non-financial resources?
So let me give you two examples, right? Think about a company like a Eureka Forbes or other FMCG companies who's actually manufacturing these products. Now, they have great technology. They are at the cutting edge of technology technology and R&D. They also understand consumer psyche. They invest a lot in consumer research. So a company like this doesn't just provide the products or just fund a CSR project, but if it's able to leverage that consumer knowledge to actually influence behaviors, to create that sort of a campaign where people find this attractive, whether they understand the importance of clean drinking water and influence mindsets, that's a non-financial resource. Media companies, for example yours, you reach out to millions of viewers every single day. Now that's really a catalytic competency, whereas we may be restricted in our reach. You can really make this a mass movement. So it's really this sort of participation, which may not necessarily be financial, is really bringing a lot of value to the sector.
I'll come in on this. Companies as part of CSR are spending billions of rupees on CSR projects. For something like potable water, how do you assess the impact? How do you know that you're getting the right bang for your buck, as it were?
Regarding impact assessment, what we are doing, we send our representatives after the installations, after the commissioning of projects, say 6 months or 1 year after that, and they go and talk to the people. They inspect the installations also, whether those hand pumps or those filtration plants are working or not, what are the feedback from the villagers. Everything is taken and recorded.
Let's bring in Aloka as well. Aloka, how do you assess impact?
One of the major parameters that we look at when we are also trying to see the impact of the program is that what cost we are able to provide the water to the communities. You have to understand there's a huge financial aspect to water. Purification of water is not a inexpensive property. It's pretty expensive in terms of to purify water, but at the same time, the communities that you're going to reach this water to, it has to be in a reasonable price for them. Just to give an example, today you have across the country, you have 20 liters of water being sold at ₹5, which gives your per liter cost at about 25 paisa. It goes, at some places it goes up to, say in an urban area, it can go up to ₹10 for 20 liters. So you have different projects where the parameters are different depending on the site that you are implementing the project. But that the cost is good you can say parameter, and that's something that we try and see, that through the CSR programs we are able to reach it at a reasonable cost. That's an important factor. Also, the other thing is the sustainability of the program. It's important that these programs are just not implemented and then you exit, it fails. It is extremely critical that we understand that in the program we built in components of operations, maintenance and after service, and how you kind of get the community to engage and take over the project once you exit the project.
Now, it is estimated that by 2020, India will be a water stress state. Before I wrap the show, I'd like all of you to weigh in on what needs to be done. A.V. Suresh, if we could begin with you. The problem is huge, the problem is grave, the geography is large. Where do you begin?
I think CSR is not about spending money. CSR is equally being conscious. CSR is beyond spending money. If you really look at it, we have more than adequate water available with us. It's just that we don't care to preserve it, we don't care to recycle it, we don't care to reuse it, and we don't really bother to harness water wherever it is. So unless you have availability of water, talking about drinking water really would not make any sense at all. So I think the need of the hour and really sustainability, if you want to ask about the year 2020, I think it's us as citizens and corporates getting more conscious about preserving, recycling and reusing and harnessing water than just talking about how can we treat or clean or provide CSR. That's my opinion about the whole thing.
Thing is that the wastage has to be reduced, and the rain harvesting is one of the most important aspect at now. All the establishments of power grid being constructed during last 4 or 5 years, and now the new one being constructed, every establishment have the rainwater harvesting arrangements. In last 4 years, we have installed more than 2,000 hand pumps. Filtration plants have been installed at more than 150 places in the last 3 years. So, we are trying to do our bit in helping the villagers, especially the villagers, in having safe drinking water.
Every drop counts, Anushri, it seems. We have 4 years before India becomes a water-stressed nation. Do we have the wherewithal to fight the looming demon who seems to be coming our way?
I think so. I think we need to take this conversation outside of the policy, government policy circles or the NGO circles to the common man. You have to enlist their support. It has to become a mass movement.
Is this where Jal Daan comes in?
Absolutely. It's more about an awareness process that you're creating. You're creating the buzz around it. So look at what Swachh Bharat did for sanitation today. I may not have to go and defecate in the open, but I'm talking about it. It bothers me. It's a similar issue here, and individual actions also count. So me donating something, me saving water at my house by fixing a leaky tap, these are the actions that I need to take. But somebody really needs to take this dialogue out there, create some noise around it, create awareness around it, and really make this everyone's problem, not just the government's problem or a company's problem.
This is everyone's problem. Anushri, thank you very much for being with us. Atul, you as well, AV Suresh and Aloka. Let's hope that we are able to make Jal Daan and Healthy India a reality soon. For those of you watching the show, remember every drop counts. So do your bit by donating 5 litres of drinking water every day to someone who needs it. The details are on your screens, and do share your Jal Daan stories with us on Twitter with the hashtag Jal Daan. Thanks very much for watching.